because I don't think there's any way we're going to make it through the stuff in 33 minutes. But at any rate, that means I may be going a little bit faster than people prefer. If people find I'm going too fast, or that they find I'm making mistakes because I'm going too fast, please, by all means, slow me down, and we'll get there when we get there.
We'll try not to ask any questions.
That's the second time already, though, Michael. Okay, so on Lamed Gimel, there's narrow, middle length, and widest lines. So near the bottom of the narrow lines, the two dots, I feel that in the Mishnah referred to a situation where the person who's davening has either a snake wrapped around his feet or a melech who comes to approach him, and he should not stop davening. So certainly that we wondered about, when we saw in the Mishnah, we wondered about pikuach nefesh. Amar Rav Sheishet lo shanu elanachash aval akrav posek. Now that's only with a snake. You don't have to worry about a snake, but a scorpion, oh, there you got to worry. See in Rashi, aval akrav posek v'nat lo lefisha akrav musukan. So a snake isn't so quick to bite, but a scorpion certainly is. Back in the Gemara, Meitveh, they ask a question on this. We don't have to worry about a snake. What about nafalagu variot ein meidim alav shemait? If somebody falls into a lion's den, we don't have to worry. We don't have to say, oh, the guy's dead. We don't give edus. He fell in, so he must be dead. Rashi explains, Lamar lishto, tell his wife, mate, ba'alech la-tira linasei pamim she'ein ha'ariot re'evim ve'en ochlim lato. You don't have to. The wife can't automatically remarry because you can't assume he's dead, because sometimes the lions have already just eaten and not so hungry anymore, so he's not going to be killed. Back in the Gemara, Nafal lechafir, we're just talking, we're at the last of the narrow lines on Lamed Gimel Amud Aleph, and we're talking about what really endangers somebody that he has to worry that he has to stop davening in the middle. But if he falls into a pit full of snakes or scorpions, and we see in Rashi it's or nechashim v'akravim o zeh meidim alav shemet alma muad hanachash lishok. So we meidim alav shemet is used in the Gemara. So we see that if he does fall into a den of snakes only, because Rashi says it's or, not snakes and scorpions, if he falls into a den of snakes, a pit of snakes, he is assumed to be dead. So how can you say that it wraps itself around his feet? He should not. It's not an issue of pikuach nefesh. Shayini hatam. The Gemara continues. Agav itzitza mazake. Now that's, if you fall right on top of it, it's not going to be happy with you, and it's going to take it out on you. Agav itzitza, Rashi explains, then it's certainly going to damage you. What other animals may be of danger, and you have to be aware of that, so you can stop davening. You're supposed to stop davening. He sees oxen or bulls, posek, he should stop. The Tani Ravoshia Marchikin Mishor Tam. That even a ox that has never gorged, or tam shalona gach adam, so you wouldn't think it's so dangerous, even if you see it within 50 amos, no, stop. Umishor mu'ad kemale enav, that if you see a mu'ad shor, one that's an agach gil pamim, and so it's known to be dangerous one, you see it anywhere in your eyesight, you run, you stop, and protect yourself. Tana mishmeidim Rav Meir reish Torah. Reish Torah b'dekula salik la'agra v'shadi darga. That if you see a Torah, if you see the head of a bull, go up the nearest tree and throw down the ladder. Not that bulls can climb ladders apparently, but it's of such concern you should sal shtulim v'tevin brosha.
How are you going to get down?
That's a good question. Okay, either way, whatever you like.
That's my question.
Okay. Amar Shmuel Hani Mili B'Shor Shachor. That's only when you're talking about a black bull, Uviyome Nisan, and in the days of Nisan, Shisha Satan, Rakelo Ben Karnav. At that time of year, it's got the devil in its eyes or between its horns, however you like. Biyom Nisan, Rashi explains in Toksha, Avru Yemei Hastav, Sha'aretz Yevesha, Machshav Ro'eh Ota Ve'ochel. Now he sees, oh, I got some food, it's more sated, it's more powerful, it's got the devil between its horns, so to speak. Shadi Darge, Lav Davka El Kelomar is a Haram Mimenu Harbe, that you don't have to throw down the ladder, but you have to be very, very careful. It's, I should have said that before. Okay, B'yom Nisan, we said, yeah. I missed a line. The Yitzhara answered him. Okay, that makes more sense. Tan Rabbanan, back in the Gemara. What's an arod? Rashi explains, it's a crossbreed between a snake and a toad. I don't know what this is. Anyone who is a biologist and has any idea what kind of species this is, by all means, let me know. I haven't a clue.
Some sort of lizard, maybe?
Yeah, but a cross between a snake and a toad. So it's not the father and the mother. It's very strange. And it was causing terrible damage to people. They told Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, Amar lahem, ha'eu li et choro, show me at his where he lives. He leaves at his hole. Ha'eu et choro, they showed him the hole. Natana kevo al pi achor. He put his heel on top of the hole. So the arod's going to come out there. Yatsa, which it did, vinashcho, and bit him. Who made Oto Arod, and the Arod promptly died. Not lo ktefo, so Rav Chanina ben Dosa took it on his shoulder. Ve'evio leBayt midrash Amar lahem re'u banai ein Arod meimit. It's not the Arod that kills, ela hachet meimit. That it is when you're being chote, when you're doing wrong things, so you make yourself vulnerable to being damaged by Arod. Ve'otosha amru oy lo la'adam shepaga bo Arod. So they said a saying based on this: woe to the man who faced the Arod. Ve'oy lo la'arod shepaga bo Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa. On woe to the Arod that had to face Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, which is very cute. Umeit ha'arod matati I'm not sure where this is. Amri b'ma'arava kisha arod nashech et ha'adam et ha'arod kodem l'mayim meit ha'adam v'im ha'adam kodem l'mayim meit ha'arod. So it depends who drank water first. If the person drank water first, then the arod's going to be dead as a doornail. And it so happened that a spring welled up just before Rav Chanina while he had his foot there, and he drank from it before the arod got to him. Mishnah Maskirin Gevurot Geshamim. We're at the Mishnah Lamed Gimel Amud Aleph. Maskirin Gvurat Kshamim b'tchias hametim. This we know very well from our davening that we talk about the Kshamim during the winter and during tchias hametim v'she'ela, and we ask for it b'birkat hashanim during the was that the 9th bracha v'havdalah b'chlan hadad, and we say havdalah on Motzei Shabbos. That's in the middle of the 4th bracha, the first of the bakashot. Rabbi Kiva Omer, as we learned this earlier, so it should be familiar to you. Omer bracha revi'it. No, we introduced an additional bracha which we insert as the 4th bracha, and so Chonei Adat moves to number 5. And Bifnei Atzma for Havdalah, Rabbi Le'ezer Omer B'Hodah. No, we add it to the Modim portion. Let's see what's that. That's the 16th or 17th bracha that we added to. Okay, 18th bracha actually. Gemara. Maskirim Gvurat. Rashi. Maskirim Gvurat Kshamim Meshiva Ruach She'eno Lashon Bakasha El Lashon Askara V'Shevach. That's why it's not in the Bakashot, but rather in the first 3 brachot. V'Shoalim V'Tein Talamatar Lashon Bakasha. Therefore, goes into the 9th bracha, which is part of the Bakashot, the middle section. V'Havdalah B'Chonei Adat V'Motzei Shabbat Atachonan Tanu. Okay. Gemara, Maskirim Gvurat Kshamim Ma'itama. So why do we recall it at all? Amar Rav Yoseph Mitoch Sheshkula Kitchias Hametim. Why is it remembered there? Because it's like Tchias Hametim, it's a rejuvenation. So just as Tchias Hametim is a rejuvenation, a revivification, so similarly the rejuvenation of the Kshamim brings the earth back to life. Therefore it's put in the bracha, the 2nd bracha of Tchias Hametim. V'she'ela v'birkat hashanim. And when we ask for it, we put it in the birkat hashanim in the 9th bracha, which is in the middle section of Bakashot. My time, Amar Rav Yosef Mitoch Shehi Parnasa, Leficha Kavua B'Birchat Parnasa. Because we're an agrarian society, or we used to be, and still are to a great extent in Eretz Yisrael, and therefore we put it into that bracha of Parnasa. Havdalah B'Chonen Adad. My time, Amar Rav Yosef Mitoch Shehi Chachma Kavua B'Birchat Chachma. That because it requires knowledge. They know when does it end, when does one day change over to the other. It requires a certain level of wisdom, so therefore it's put into Chonen Adat, which recalls wisdom, which is a request for wisdom. Rabbanan, Amri mitoch shehi chol, leficha kavu b'birchat chol. No, it's the first time you have a bakasha. It's your first opportunity to give a bakasha, and therefore you put it in the very first bracha. If the first bracha had been something completely different, you still would have put Havdalah in that bracha, in that first bakasha bracha. See anything in Rashi? Mitochi chachma hachacham yodea lavdil bein kodesh l'chol ubein tami l'tahor. Okay. Amar Rav Ami Gedola Deya Shenatna B'Tchilas Bracha Shel Chol. So it's great that that it's put into the first bracha of Chol. Amar Rav Ami Gdola Deya Shenatna. That's how we know that it's important with regard to Dat. Amar Rav Ami, a different source for knowing that Dat is important. Gdola Deya Shenatna Ben Shtei Otiot. It too, as Rashi explains, is Otiot is Ben Shtei Haskarot Shmei Hashem. When you put it to one Shem Hashem, another Shem Hashem, that shows that it's very, very important. Shneimar, and brings a pasuk from Shmuel Kel Daot Hashem. So Deya is between two Shemot Hashem. V'chol mi she'ein bo Deya asur l'rachem alav. Someone who doesn't think, who is you can't have rachamim on that person. Shneimar ki lo im am binot hu. Al-kain lo yirachamenu osehu. So Hashem will not have rachamim when somebody doesn't use their brain. Amar of Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Elazar, Gadol. We have similar learning, not with regard to Dat, but with regard to Beis Hamikdash. Rabbi Amar Rabbi Elazar, Gadol Mikdash Natan Bein Shtei Otiot. Again, this Askarot Shem Hashem. Shneimar Pulat Hashem Mikdash Hashem. Amar Rabbi Elazar Kol Adam Sheyesh Bo Deya Ki'ilu B'Nina Beis Hamikdash. And now we make sort of a connection between those two sets of learnings, between the Deya, which is between two Shmot Hashem, and between Mikdash, which is between Shtei Shmot Hashem B'Yamav. Mikdash Miyamav, Deya Natna Ben Shnei Otiyot, Mikdash Natan Ben Shnei Otiyot. So there we see that someone who uses their mind also is helpful in trying to bring the Beis Hamikdash. Matkiv Rav Acha Karchina'a. So Rav Acha, I don't know if that means the bald one. If you're going to say that, if you have that learning that any word that's deposited between one Shem Hashem and another Shem Hashem has a special relevance and has a special power. So from that learning, Gedola Nekama should say something about revenge. And now Ben Shtei Otiyot, also between two names of Hashem. Shneimar Kel Nekamot Hashem. Amar le, and yeah, exactly. V'milta miha gedola hi v'hayu de amar ula shtei nekamot halalu lama achat l'tova v'achat l'ra. We have special significance to it that there's an nekama for good and there's an nekama for not so good. L'tova dechtiv hofia mihar paran, that it's coming from Har Paran, is reference correctly to Har Sinai. Bnei Yisrael Mekabel on Har Paran, is that correct?
Yeah, he says it.
Narsinah, yeah, okay. Nasa v'nishma. Okay, so that would be Nekama, as Rashi explains, a couple of different explanations for that. Hofia Galavi Yifkir Kishalo Kiblu et Torah. Yeah, so it must be Har Sinai. But we're just above that. There are two explanations from Rashi. Shtei nekamot halalu lama achat l'ra'al l'hinakein mina akum avdei kochavim shelo kiblu et Torah. That one is nekama against the goyim, ve'achat l'tova k'tamina mebavakama mefa'arim hafia v'hivkir mamonam l'Yisrael shor shel Yisrael shenagaf shor shel avdei kochavim patur. The tova is that you will not take nekama. You won't have to pay for when, for example, when a shore of Bnei Yisrael is nogeach, it damages the shore of a goy.
They rejected the Torah, that can't benefit from Torah law.
Right. Good. And just finishing that thought in the Gemara, the Ra Dichtiv Kel Nekamot Hashem, Kel Nekamot Hofia. So that's the two references, one to Tova, one to Ra. Okay, Rabbi Akiva Omer Bracha Revi. So he says that we add a completely new bracha for the Havdalah in Shemona Esrei and Motzei Shabbos. Amar le Rav Shemen bar Abba, the Rabbi Yochanan Michti. Let's see. Anshek, where are you getting this from? Anshek Knesset Gedolah Tiknu Lahem LiYisrael Brachot V'Tefillot Krushot V'Havdalah. So the Anshek Knesset Gedolah put our present davening format into place. So Nechsi Hechan Takun. So why don't we just see what they did, and we'll know. Amrle B'tchila, no, we can't. Why? B'tchila kavua b'tfila. At the very beginning, what did the Anshe Knesset Gedolah do? They said it that we're going to say the Havdalah somewhere in Shemona Esrei. But what happened? He'eshiru. Then Bnei Yisrael got a little bit more well off. Kavua al hakos, and therefore it said now we can afford wine. Everyone can afford wine in their homes. So now say Havdalah on the kos instead of during Shemona Esrei. But then comes harder times, and they got poor again. Chazru v'kavua b'tefillah, so they have to go back to the tefillah. See here they're going back and forth and back and forth. And remember, this is a time when you don't have published sidurim, and people have to remember on their own. It got confusing. V'him amru havmavdil b'tefillah, tzarich shavdil al-kos. They said, you know what? Do both. Let's look in Rashi. Ashiru, got rich enough they could not yain. So that's when they switched it from the Shemona Esrei to Havdalah. Kavua ala kos v'az nishtakach takanat Ezra, because they were going back and forth. So the original takana that Anshe Knesset Gedolah was forgotten. Chazru ve'anu they got purging kavua b'tfilah v'nechaku heyachi amruha. So when they returned to include it not just in Havdalah but also in Shemona Esrei, nobody remembered exactly how to do it, whether to do it on its own bracha or whether to do it in the fourth bracha tachoneh. So back in the Gemara, Itmar Nami, Amar Rav Chia bar Abba, Amar Yochanan, Anshe Knesset Gedolah, Tiknu Lahem Yisrael Brachot V'Tfilot Dushot Havdalot, B'Tfilah Kavua B'Tfilah Heshiru Kavua Alakos Kazru Ve'enu Kavua B'Tfilah. So just a reiteration of what we just learned. Ve'im Amru Hamavdil B'Tfilah Tarik She'Avdil Alakos, and they said even if you say it in Tfilah, you still have to say it on the kos afterwards, a separate Havdalah. Itmar Nami, Rav Rav Yoseph, Da'amri Travayu Hamavdil B'Tfilah Tarik She'Avdil Alakos. As we learned this similarly elsewhere, Amar Rava Umatvina Ashmaitin. Matvinan Ashmaitin. So what do we do in a situation? Let me just what's saying here. Forgive me.
Challenge them.
Oh, he challenged them. Okay, good. Thank you very much. Challenged them. What happened? Ta'ah. So he challenged him with the following question. We learned earlier a week or so ago, if you only remember law he's scary. If you forgot to say the Guras Kshamim in Tchias Ametim, or if you forgot to say Usheilav Berchat Hashanim, and remember for that latter one there's two opinions and we don't necessarily hold by this opinion that Rav is bringing here. Machzirin Oto, you go all the way back to where you started that section. V'Havdalah B'chonen Hadat. But Havdalah b'chonen hadat ein machzirim oto v'pnei sheyachol lo amra ala kos. So we see that it's not absolutely you have to say it in tefillah, because you can always recover yourself on Havdalah. No, you can't learn from there. Lo te'am v'pnei sheyachol lo amra ala kos. So we see lo te'am v'pnei sheyachol lo amra ala kos ela ema v'pnei she'amra ala kos. No, what should we say there? The wording there seems to say sheyachol lo amra ala kos. So that the question, Rav's question is, you say you have to say Havdalah, but we see it's only an option to say Havdalah based on this. Say no. So change the wording. Because you are going anyway to say it on the kos. So it's not an option; it is a requirement. Itmar nami amar Binyamin bar Yafet sha'al Rav Yossi ad Rav Yochanan b'Tzidon ve'amri la Rav Shimon ben Yaakov demin sur ad Rav Yochanan. It's asked this question. Ve'ana shamit hamavdil b'tfila tzarich she'avdil ala kos. That someone who says Havdalah in tefillah has to say also on the kos, or maybe he doesn't have to say on the kos afterwards, doesn't have to say Havdalah afterwards. But Amrali tzarich she'avdil ala kos, that you have to say on the kos. Ibailu, he asked him Havdil ala kos, ma'u she'avdil b'tefillah. What about the reverse? What if you sing it on Havdalah? Do you have to then say it on the tefillah during Shemona Esrei? Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak kal v'chomer. No, obviously you do. Why? Kal v'chomer mitfillah. You have to say in tefillah. Ma tefillah deikar takantahi. Because originally, when were you supposed to say it? Anshe Knesset Gedolah said originally it's supposed to be in tefillah, and afterwards it said you do it on the kos instead when they were mashir. So Amri hamavdil but tefillah. Sarich sheyavdil alakos, amavdil alakos to love ikar takantahi lo kol shekain. So if you're saying that if you did in tefillah, do you have to say it on the kos? Yes, you do. So obviously, if the reverse is true, if you said it on the kos and you've skipped the more important one of the tefillah, then for sure you have to say it on the tefillah, which is the more primary source for it. Okay. Tani Rabbi Acha Aricha. So the tall Rabbi Acha. Kami says Kami de Rav Chinana Hamavdil betfila Meshubach Yoter. That the person who says Havdalah during Tefillah, that's even better than someone who says Alakos. If he says both, brachot al rosho. So he should have tremendous brachot. So that if he does it on the kos as well, he should have great brachos. Well, hang on a second. Ha gufa kasha. Wait a second. Amarta amavdu betfillah meshubach yoter mishi avdil kos. Are you sure? Alma tefillah lechuda sagi. That you're saying that the tefillah lechuda is enough. And that's why if you do the extra, you get special brachos. And if you do the extra, if you say the extra bracha that's not required, you get extra brachot. That's a tremendous blessing for you. Wait a second, we're talking about a bracha she'ein tzricha. You're being over. How can you say that when you're saying a bracha so tzarcha, you're getting extra brachas. It's a tremendous attainment that you're doing. This is how we should learn. Now what he meant, Now what he meant was that if you only said it in tefillah or you only said it in Havdalah, if you only said one of the two, then you get tremendous blessings. So he's not saying that if you do the extra bracha in Havdalah, that's when you get extra blessings. So that's not necessarily how we hold, but anyway, that's according to the Mandamar that brought the concept. I think it's Rav Yacha, Aricha, that you get special brachot. Okay. What if you forgot both? We're talking about Shemona Esrei now. You should go back to the very beginning with Tefillah V'Lakos. I guess we say Havdalah for both. Amar le Ravina le Rava Hilchata Mai. What's the halacha? How do we really hold? Amar le Ki Kiddush Ma Kiddush Af Al Gav de Mekadesh Bitzlota Mekadesh Akasa Af Havdalah Nami Af Al Gav de Mavdil Bitzlota Mavdil Akasa. So just like in Kiddush on Erev Shabbos, we're Mekadesh the Shabbos during Tefillah. The one bracha we say in the middle is Mekadesh Shabbat. So, but we still go home and we still say Kiddush on the Yain. So similarly on Masei Shabbos, even if you say the bracha of Havdalah in Chonen Dat, we still say a separate Havdalah, and that's in fact how we hold. Okay. Rav Eliezer Omer Behoda. How are we doing for time? Okay. So those who came in later, I said that I was going to go very quickly because there are those, including myself, who are hoping to make it to the call of program. So I'm going to continue in the same vein. Unless there are any objections, I'm continuing apace. Rav Eliezer Omer Behoda, that we add the Havdalah in the second last bracha of Modim. Rav Zera have a Rachiv Chamra, have a Kashaki v'Azir Rav Echia bar Avin Batre. So Rav Zera was riding on his donkey, and Rav Echia bar Avin was trying to keep up, running beside him. Amar le Vadai da Amritu Mishmei, and they're having a conversation. Amar le Vadai da Amritu Mishmei Rav Yochanan halachak Rav Eliezer. That I heard, according to Rav Yochanan, halacha is like Rav Eliezer. B'Yom Tov shechal liyot achar Shabbat. What we're talking about when Yom Tov lands, not like this year, which is Sunday night, but rather if it lands on Motzei Shabbos, then you're supposed to say Havdalah in Modim during your davening for Ma'ariv on Motzei Shabbos. So Amar le ein halacha. So if you say it's a halacha like him, when do we say halacha? When we use that terminology, we say halacha, we call it the pligi, when there's a disagreement. That is, Rav Eliezer holds one way, and we know there's somebody else who holds a different way, and who do we hold by? We hold by Rav Eliezer. That's when we use the word the halacha. So who's he arguing with? Who's his counterpart that's giving a different opinion? V'lo pligi, v'ha pligi rabbanan. Yeah, we do have somebody. What are you saying? There's nobody arguing with him. Pligi rabbanan. Rabbanan had a different opinion. So what was our opinion of rabbanan? That we say Havdalah separately. Amar de pligi rabbanan. Now when is that? That's in the fourth bracha of Chenin Adat. That's the opinion of Rabbanan. So wait a second. Amar de pligi rabbanan. When are you saying that Rabbanan disagree with Rav Eliezer? It's not on the situation of Motzei Chag that falls on Motzei Shabbos. When is it? That's in the rest of the year. Who's arguing with them? And Rabbanan obviously aren't adding it to Atachonin on a Motzei Shabbos, on a Chag that's on Motzei Shabbos, because there is no Atachonin then. So who could it be? How Pali Rabbi Akiva? No, maybe it's Rabbi Akiva. He adds a bracha. Remember, Rabbi Akiva's opinion in the Mishnah was he adds a fourth bracha, an additional bracha. So maybe the person who is disagreeing with Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Eliezer's opinion it goes to Modim. The opinion that is arguing with him is Rabbi Akiva, who holds that you add a special bracha. So in other words, it will be, instead of 7 brachas, it will be 8 brachas on the Chag that falls on Motzei Shabbos. Wait a second. The rest of the year, nobody holds like Rabbi Akiva. He's not a serious counterpart. Now you're saying we're going to go hold by him when you have a Chag on Motzei Shabbos. Why don't we hold like Rabbi Akiva the rest of the year? The Tmani, Takun, Chasrei Lo Takun. We have a Shemona Esrei. We don't have a 19 bracha. Well, we do, but you know what he means. Hachanami, we don't add an extra bracha to it at that point. We don't have 20 brachas instead of 19 brachas. Hachanami, Shev Takun, Tmani Lo Takun. There's 7 brachas on Chag, not 8. You can't add an extra bracha after the first set of 3. So we don't have a serious argument against Rav Eliezer, who adds it to Moedim. So what are you saying that there's halacha? You're using the wrong terminology. Amar le love halacha itmar. No, actually he didn't say halacha. What he said was elamatin itmar. We lean towards him. That is, there's a tendency to go in that direction. The itmar Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi Amar mishum Rabbeinu halacha the amar le matin. There's a disagreement. Some said he said halacha. Some said matin. We lean towards him. Rav Yochanan Amar Moedim. Rav Yochanan Amar Moedim. Rav Chia bar Abba Amar Nirin. So a different disagreement. One is that we agree with Rav Eliezer, and Rav Chia says we're nearing. That, sort of, maybe. That's even less than matin. Nearing, it could be that Rav Eliezer is right. But what do we do? Amar Rav Zira nakut Rav Chia bar Abba. We hold like Rav Chia bar Abba biadecha. You should hold like him because he had the learnings in his hand. The daik, he was very sharp. V'gamar shmaite mi puma demara, and he learned his learnings very exactly from his Rebbe. Shapir extremely closely. Kerachva b'tipumpadita. Just like Rachva b'tipumpadita had the reputation from learning from his Rebbe extremely well. The Amar Rachva Amar Rav Yehuda Harabayit Stav Kavu Haya V'Haya Stav Lifni Mistav. That when Rachva of Pumpadita would say his learning that he got from Rav Yehuda, he would use exactly the same wording, even though it wasn't the usual kind of wording. He would use stav instead of istabita, as you see in Rashi. I'm just looking at Rashi because it's interesting that a student should use the exact wording of his Rebbe. See, it's on the right side here. So at halfway down the Rashi on the right hand side, he uses the exact same signs. Where does he say that we agree with him, we're modeh to Rabbi Eliezer, or we say matin, we just lean in his direction? He was very exact in following what his Rebbe said. He used the terminology of benches inside of benches, a double bench arrangement there was in the Yerushalayim. Even though the correct wording that's used, the nomenclature we use is itztaba b'psachim u'v'suka, and those masechtot agave ha'itstaba, we say an itztaba instead of itztaba. That's the double bench wording that's used. Who dikdik b'lashon rabo? He knew he wasn't using the more vernacular terminology, but he used the words of his Rebbe. V'lo amar itztaba kfula hayta yesh. Okay, that's point made. Back in the Gemara. So near the bottom of the narrow lines, Amar Rav Yosef, Ana lo ha yadana, v'lo ha yadana, elami de Rav u'Shmuel. How did I know what to do? I learned from Rav and Shmuel, says Rav Yosef. Yadana de takinu lan b'marganita beBavel, because I learned a tremendous pearl of wisdom from them in Bavel. What did they say? They put it inside the bracha, inside that bracha on the Chag that falls on Motzei Shabbos. So the middle bracha, so you have the first three and the last three, so the only one in the middle, the seventh bracha, V'todienu Hashem Elokeinu et mishpatei tzidkecha v'tlamdeinu la'asot kol kever zanecha v'tnatzeilenu zmanei sason v'chagei nedava tarishenu kedushat Shabbat uvod moed v'chagigat haregel ben kedushat Shabbat v'kedushat Yom Tov hivdalta v'et Yom Shvi'i mishesh yimei Amaseh kedashta hivdalta v'kedashta et amcha Yisrael v'kedushatecha v'titen lanu, etc., etc. And obviously we do not use exact wording, but I'm sure you recognized a great portion of that. Okay. Mishnah. Haomer al kan sipor. So somebody who wants to add their own wording. So we learned before that you can add your own wording, your own tefillas at certain points during the Shemona Esrei. But what about the Shlich Tzibur? So the Shlich Tzibur is up there, and he changes the wording in certain ways. And here are some examples. Mishnah gives Haomer al kan sipor yagiu rachamecha. So Haomer b'tefillah. So the Shlich Tzibur is adding the description of the Rachamim of Hashem, and a different wording that you might use about Tov Yisacher Shmecha, that Hashem gives good, and Modim, and if he uses two words Modim to emphasize our Hodah to Hashem, Meshatkim Oto, we immediately silence him or knock him out of there. We got to get rid of this guy. Gemara. See in Rashi, maybe you see what he explains. Al kan sipor yagiu rachamecha anashim shayu mar'im atzmam mitchonim. Some see themselves ready lahamik bilshon tachanunim, that they're a bit gaivadik and they feel, I can change the words to Moshe Knesset to go to law. I can do any better. V'armim rachum v'chanunatav al kan sipor, so that Hashem is rachum v'chanun. And give an example of kan sipor. He says yagiu rachamecha she'amarta l'shalech et ha'em, or she'omer al tov she'ata osel lanu izacher shimcha or she'omar modim mishatkim oto. We silence them immediately for each of these, and we'll see why each of these is problematic. The first two are obvious, as the Gemara explains. Bishlama modim mishatkim oto mishum di maxi kishtei rishayot. Someone might think he's talking about two different Hashems. Al tov izacher shimcha. Nami mashma ala tov v'lo we thank Hashem for everything, even those things that appear to be evil. We thank Hashem. Sorry.
Sorry.
Okay. Utnan chayav adam l'varech ala ra'ah kishem shemarech ala tova. You say baruch dayan emet. We thank for the ra as well as the tova. What we perceive to be the ra as well as what we perceive to be the tova. Ela el kansi por yagiu rachamecha. My time up. Why is that a problem? Pligi batrei amorai. So there's two opinions of why that's a problem. But one Amara says b'mara, and both of these are in Eretz Yisrael. B'marava. Rabbi Yossi bar Avin, Rabbi Yossi bar Zvida. Chad Amar mipnei shematil kin'a b'masei breshit. One is you're making all the other bria, so you're referring to the bird, so he's okay, but all the other animals, they're upset, so it's not very nice to them. You're causing them to be jealous. Chad Amar mipnei she'asem midotav shel Kadosh Baruch Hu rachamim ve'enan el gzerot. That this Kansipor is a mitzvah. It's not talking about the Rachamim of Hashem. Let's look in Rashi explains very nicely. Shematil kina lamar al eila chas velo al shar briatav. It's not talking about the rest of the animals, just about the bird. Midotav, mitzvatav. This is really a mitzvah, the Kansipor. But who lo l'rachamim? It's not referring to the Rachamim of Hashem. Asa el hatil al Yisrael chukei gzerotav lo adia shehem avadav v'shamrei mitzvatav gzerot chukotav af bidvarim sheyesh l'satan l'akum la'ashiv aleim v'lamar matzorach v'mitzvazo. So essentially, maybe it's not Rashi. Then it's from a different source that the Art Scroll brought that it's trying to bring the rachamim out of us. It's trying to make us rachamim. It's not talking about rachamim Hashem, but it's those kind of acts, and it could apply as easily to akum as well. That to bring out rachamim from the people. Okay, back in the Gemara. Hahu denachit kame deraba. There's one person who started davening this way in front of Rava. The Amar Ata Chashta Al Kan Sipor Ata Chus Rachim Aleinu, and he started using these incorrect passages. Amar Rava Kama Yada Hai Tzur Ba L'Rabanan L'Ratzui L'Mari. So Rava very curiously says, "Oh, isn't this a wonderful davening from this person? He's really capturing the desires of Hashem." Amar le Abai, v'hamishatkinoto. Wait a second, we learned they have to quiet him. You have to get him out of there. That no, really, Rabba was saying it facetiously, and he was Debai who did not. Debai, yeah. So he was doing it to get a response from Abai to make sure that Abai would be sharp enough to castigate the guy and get him out of there. There's another person who went down to daven in front of Rabbi Chanina. Amar Hakel Hagadol Gibor V'Nara. Right? And then he starts adding his own adjectives. Va'adir, va'azuz, va'yarui, feared, hachazak, va'amitz, v'havada, the certain one, v'hanichbad, himtin lo adesayim. So Rabbi Chanina waited until he finished. He saw him when he finished davening. Amarle simaintihu lekuhu shvache demara. So, did you finish all the adjectives that you could use on Hashem? Lamali kuli hai. So why these and not other ones? Anan hani tlad amrina. The three that we say all the time. Ilav amrinu. If it had not been said by Moshe Rabbeinu Reiter in the Torah, va'atu anshe gdola v'lakninu b'tfila lo. We wouldn't be able to say the three that we say, Kel Gadol Gibor V'Nara. We wouldn't be able to say these three and only these three unless we had a makor for it. But you're going to add your own adjective. Give an example to a melech basar v'dam shayulo elef alafim dinarei zahav, who's incredibly rich. He has vaults of thousands of gold dinarim. V'hayu mekalsin oto b'shel kesef. And what would the people do? They say, "Oh, we got a great king. He's got silver." That's an embarrassment for the king when you come up with your own adjectives, because you cannot possibly capture the greatness of Hashem. And the only reason we can use those three adjectives anyway is because we have the makor. Okay. Amar Tanina Hakobi de Shemaim Chus Mir Shemaim She'anei Amar. And this we all know very well from Rashi's that we learned during Chumashir. She'amar V'ata Yisrael Ma Hashem Alekecha Shoel Me'imach Im Lira. We only ask that we be afraid. Atu Yirat Shemaim Milta Zutratahi. Is that such a small thing? I mean, that's an incredibly high madrega. Amar Rav Rav Chanina Mishum Rav Shimon Bar Yochai Ein Lo LaKadosh Baruch Hu BeBayt Genazav Elo Atzar Shel Yiras Shamayim. That's an incredibly precious value, a height to achieve. Shneimar Yirat Hashem Hi Otzaro. That's the source for that conclusion. It is a small achievement. L'gabe Moshe, Milta Zutratehi. For Moshe, it was a small achievement. Amar Chanina, Mashallah, Adam Shemavakshim Mimenu, Kli Gadol, V'yesh Lo, if someone asks to borrow a very large vessel and he has one, Domalav Kli Katan. So the guy who has the big vessel, no big deal, I'll give it. It's like as if the person was asking for a small Kli. Katan be'ein lo doma elav Kli Gadol. If someone comes and asks you for a small Kli, if you don't have any, then it seems like a huge thing not to have. And maybe we'll stop there because it's time for the Kol program.